and then our score at
What
the end.
we would do as a Street Fighter adaptation, which to be honest don't have a clue yet, but I'm gonna wing it.
Yes, I mean I've always wung it.
Oh, just wung it. That is the past tense of wing. I've wung. He's wung. They've wung.
He, she wung. They wunged.
They winged. They winged.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of Screen Flickers.
Wow, I tell you, they're coming thick and fast now, aren't they?
I mean, we're on a roll.
Yeah.
Like one every 4 or 5 months. Like we get 2 a year, 3 a year maybe.
That's right. We definitely know how to hang on to what little audience we have. We should call them out personally by name and insult them just to make sure that we don't actually accrue any followers. So.
Yeah, because we're just going to cause a lot of disappointment for the infrequency of this podcast. But just to re-elaborate, this is Eddie, by the way. Hi, I'm Eddie.
I am Joel.
And what we do here on Screen Flickers is a podcast that specifically reviews movies that are adaptations of video games. So, as you can probably tell by the title and the image of which I don't know what it looks like yet, but I'm sure it looks stunning.
It's beautiful.
It's Street Fighter. And somewhere downstairs my cat is meowing her head off, so we're going to try and ignore that. Hopefully that doesn't get picked up.
It's going to add a lovely sense of domestic bliss to this cast.
So we just watched Street Fighter, the movie, based off Street Fighter 2, which I believe in itself, the movie then spawned a game called Street Fighter, the movie, the game.
That's right.
So it became a game adapted from a movie adapted from a game.
That's right, and in the process became a sort of a Mortal Kombat style digitized video image game.
Yeah, so they're like photos or scans of the actors themselves as the characters in the film, and they did all the fights and stuff. Whether or not they actually did the image capture for them on set, because it seems likely. I don't think that anybody wouldn't necessarily want to be hanging around for long after they'd made the film. Spending more time on. I mean, I get the feeling that they were trying to make this into a franchise, because the fact that they leave it quite open-ended. I think they were hoping for more films, but I don't know if this necessarily flopped or they just never got to the stage where they made a sequel or not. I mean,
let me
I'm
have
not
a
sure.
look on the old computer.
Joel's going to look that up. But in the meanwhile, we're going to review this. We're going to review this film first of all solely as a film, and then we're going to look at it as a game adaptation, and then we're going to talk about what we would have done better if we're so confident in our review critiquing.
You think you're so good?
Who do you think you are?
You go and make the film. It was number 3 in the box office. It dropped down to number 7, but because it was on such a shoestring budget, depending on how much they actually spent on promotion, I don't think it was technically a flop.
I don't think it did too badly, but it probably didn't do brilliantly enough.
No. I
think the reviews were quite severe and of the film, and so therefore that probably really kind of impacted the potential for sequels. And I mean, Raúl Juliá dying straight after the film probably didn't help.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah.
That was a big tragedy.
And it sucks because
I don't know why I needed the... I don't know why I felt that I needed to say that, just in case anybody was thinking, oh, that's great, you know. I didn't need to say that was a tragedy. I think everyone is well aware of that.
Yeah, so. Raúl Juliá, he was the pinnacle Gomez Addams.
Oh, sure.
Like, I know him remember him so fondly as Gomez Addams, and he was phenomenal at that. Like, he was perfect.
He was a well-respected actor in his own sort of terms. You know, he was in things like Kiss of the Spider-Woman, and I'm just bringing up his Wikipedia entry so I can seem like I'm very educated. And oh yes, he was very good in Two Gentlemen of Verona on stage.
Wow, you just remembered that off the top of your head?
I did. I actually did. So I was just wondering. He probably didn't want that to be what he was remembered for exactly.
Same way as Bob Hoskins didn't want to be remembered for the Mario movie. But
that's right. Well, luckily he survived after that film.
He did.
Continued to make more films. So
some of which weren't necessarily better per se, but you know they still weren't another Mario movie, so
that's true.
He had that going for him. But anyway, let's talk about Street Fighter as a movie. So personally for me, the film was a mess. I mean, I was laughing throughout the film, but I don't think I was meant to. Kind of like with Double Dragon, there was just this huge amount of corniness that was just funny to me, but from that kind of ironic view. But in the same way, the film itself obviously never took itself seriously, because they dropped a bunch of gags in there for like seemingly weird reasons. Like Zangief was the comic relief. He had like one line which was objectively a brilliant line. Like,
that's right. It's very good. Obviously, he's not consistent at all with his portrayal in the games.
No,
I say this like I'm not very deep into the Street Fighter lore. I mean, I think we talked about this and we said that neither of us are a massive, have played a lot of Street Fighter in our time.
I'll probably go against that and say I played a lot of Street Fighter 2 in my time.
Oh yeah, Street Fighter.
We'll get to that in that second part of the review. You keep jumping ahead, Joel. Keep jumping ahead.
I'm thinking fourth dimensionally. I am simultaneously already giving my speech for later on. And you just cut it out and edit it into later.
Right, fair enough. But the plot itself is a mess, because you've got like multiple strands, because they've got so many characters that they've forced to be in this film. Like, they haven't tried to keep like the story to be quite small and modest, because focus on maybe one or two characters and the kind of uphill struggle they have or anything like that. You have like one thread which is of like Bison and his attempt at world domination and his kind of internal affairs there with dealing with Sagat and Vega, and then you have Guile and like his attempts to take down Bison, and this kind of the plot they have to try and get through Bison's defenses. And then you've got the plot of Chun-Li, who is like this secret agent that has been covertly working as a reporter for 20 years to try and get close to Bison. And then you've got another plot which has got Ryu and Ken, who are just kind of accidentally wind up in a cage fight trying to sell guns to Sagat, and then they themselves get kind of involved with Guile to pretend to do a breakout so that they can follow Sagat to where Bison is. And
this is the interesting thing, that obviously in the game Ryu and Ken are ostensibly the main character. Well, Ryu is kind of the main character and Ken is kind of like his mate. They kind of become like just people who are accidentally in the wrong place at the wrong time sort of thing. They're almost like sort of Bill and Ted sort of stumbling through this film. I think
then you got the other plot, which is like Dalsim and trying to build a monster, which is Blanca.
It's a sort of an unwilling Frankenstein, basically.
So you've got like so many.
Blanca looks awful in this film.
He looks terrible.
Like, I think I said he looked like a palette swapped Tommy Wiseau.
Even at the time, it looked bad. I think like there were so many plot strands going on in this film, and somehow it was still boring. Like, there's a lot of characters kind of stood around and talking. There's a bit where they're standing around talking about the next plan, where they're going to send a boat out and stuff. Like, remarkably, there's very little street fighting in this film.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of standing around. Like, there's a whole sequence where Bison is launching his, like, he's going to do it. He's going to kill the prisoners or whatever, and like, all the heroes are lined up behind him and don't do anything. They're not resisting the guards. They're not resisting arrest. They don't even attempt to try and stop Bison, which you'd have thought they would. They just stand there and watch.
It does look like it's quite hot in the control room. Maybe that's it. Maybe they just like, oh, God's sake.
Yeah.
To be honest, almost as hot as it is in this room. This room, maybe that's why I think of this room as like your womb, because it's so flipping hot in here, man.
Yeah, sorry, they've got the central heating.
No, it's alright. Just as long as we can finish the podcast before we die, I'll be happy. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It is remarkably static, and considering that that's kind of like a sort of cheap way to make a film like this is to not have loads of plot and is to just like concentrate on the fighting. So you'd think, but apparently what happened was what they did was, by casting Jean-Claude Van Damme and Raúl Juliá, they basically used up half their budget or something like that getting these guys. And then originally the plan was that they were all going to get trained in the fighting months ahead. But because Raúl Juliá's stuff will be shot later on, the more dangerous stuff, because they tend to shoot more dangerous stuff with big stars towards the end of a shoot, just in case if something goes wrong, then they won't be out of the shoot for the rest of the shoot.
Yeah, right.
That sounds very callous, but it's quite standard practice. But then when they found he had cancer, they had to move everything forward because they were really worried about him dying, which is terrible. But what that meant was all the training stuff was concentrated on him, and they didn't have as much time to train all the other people because there was this one fight coordinator. So they would be learning their moves, so like days or maybe even like hours before they shot their scenes.
Right.
So maybe that's why they sort of leant back on the fighting stuff, because they literally couldn't make it look as good as it was supposed to.
Yeah. So you got this kind of so the premise of the film is the Bison is essentially holding the world to hostage. Like, he has like a bunch of prisoners somehow that he is holding hostage for £20 billion, and he's forcing the world to pay him that much. And so Guile and his international team, the AN, are trying to bust them out. And then there's this whole bunch of like other subplots that go on at the same time, so they all
Bison
kind of
genuinely is doing this as a way to get money, or do you think that this is just what he does? He just like kidnaps people. It's just kind of like he's kind of very much an evil box ticker, really, isn't he?
I mean, he's a megalomaniac, because like you see, like he has this plan to like change the world to Bisonopolis, and
I think,
and then like. He says later he's going to kidnap the Queen, so therefore the Bison dollars would have value, his own printed money. So
I think we can say here that Raúl Juliá's performance is absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah,
and that he kind of is chewing the scenery. They probably couldn't afford for him to chew the scenery, considering how little they probably spent on it. But yeah, he is a really brilliant, over the top cartoon.
Like he probably revelled in the role, to be honest. Like as much people like may like. I don't know, unfairly criticised the acting of his acting in particular in this film. Like, he's playing like a really over-the-top villain, and he nails it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he was given on the page, that's what he delivered on the screen, and
probably
it was perfect.
The best Doctor Doom in any of them films so far.
Yeah, it makes me regret that he never got the chance to play Doctor Doom at any point. He would have probably nailed that as well.
He would have been brilliant.
He's one of those, just like kind of like Tim Curry. He's just one of these like really enigmatic actors that just holds the presence of the room.
If you hire him, yeah, he's going to commit to it 100%. Tim Curry is known at any role, no matter what the role, he is there for you. He doesn't dial it in.
He doesn't care how dumb it is. He'll just do it, and you just get a brilliant result at the end of it, like in a very kooky, self-aware way sometimes, but still really funny. So there's too much going on in this film, which somehow still makes it boring. I guess maybe because we never get any real sense of the stakes. We never get any real sense of drama or peril, because it all seems so, like Guile and Cammy and T-Hawk, they're all like, I guess, one side of the world, and Bison's on the other side of the world, and like they just talk to each other through TV monitors, but like other than like the hostages being kept in a pit, like there never seems to be any
hostage pit, the specially built hostage pit.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's great. Whoever it was who designed his base, on the inside of this thing, Bison must have just been like, okay, number one, skulls and lots of them. Everything must look like a skull.
Everything was skull themed, and like he says at one point, like, how dare they call me evil and mad? And like, dude, even your cocktail stirrers are skulls. You have a skull fireplace.
That's great.
You have multiple hats and they all have skulls.
Oh, there's a beautiful match cut between him and the skull fireplace that I thought was absolutely fantastic.
It's like, yeah, mate, you're mad. Yeah, so you never get any real sense of peril, because whilst we get reminders that the hostages are there, and there's like, this ticking clock, kind of, but it's like 3 days, so it's quite a while.
Yeah.
So like, there doesn't seem to be any. There still doesn't seem to be any urgency, because there's never really any real effect on the characters. I mean, they attempt to have it be a very personal effect with Blanca, who is Guile's best friend, Charlie, who they are converting. So there's a sense in that respect, but
sure, the person who has the strongest arc is Chun-Li, because obviously, you know, you kind of, she starts out, you just think she's a news reporter, then you find out she's got this darker side, she's been undercover, like you said, for 20 years, and she's, you know, wants to take down M. Bison, and she has a chance, and she tries to take him down, and she fails, and then right at the end, she kicks some people's guns out of their hands and doesn't face him at all. And she should be the one who beats him at the end.
Yeah, it's like her whole arc is to take down Bison. Her first attempt is to drive a truck slowly towards his tent and warns him beforehand.
After having shown him, but yeah, guess what?
So, like, yeah, that was her chance blown. Like, after she was in the tent with him pretending to be a dancer, like, she could have just shot him in the head.
Yeah.
But she failed. And then, and second attempt, like, she's being, like, seduced by Bison in a kind of very dodgy, problematic scene, let's just say.
Yeah.
And again, doesn't, like, she does go attack him, like, she breaks her binds, so therefore she ends up with the wrist guards that she has in the game. But after maybe a couple of punches and throws, like, he just locks himself in a panic room and, like, gasses the room. So she fails again, and then third time, Guile just does it.
That's it, yeah.
Like, she never gets to have that final blow. She never gets the kind of completion to her arc. She never gets the redemption for, like, the people, her family and her town and all that stuff that Bison was responsible for. Like, she never gets that kind of satisfaction. She just gets, like, she helps the prisoners get out and then weirdly complains about Cammy's hair. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all she gets. It's so, like, disappointing. Like, yeah, you're right. She has the strongest arc in the film, but it becomes so focused on Guile.
Well, that's it. I mean, because obviously he is the main character and played by Jean-Claude Van Damme. Not badly, you know, he kind of does his best. And, you know, he's not an uncharismatic person.
No.
And some of his pronunciations are just absolutely bizarre.
I still do question the casting, though, because, I don't know, I'm sure there were probably more enigmatic actors they could have played the role that didn't also have this kind of slurry French accent as well that made it very hard to understand what he was saying much of the time. Like, I mean,
he pronounces Shadowloo a different way every time he says it. Shadowloo.
How did you put it? Like, you had a French guy playing an American, you had an Australian playing a British. What was the rest?
A British.
A British.
Yeah, so you've got, there's two First Nations people playing a Thai person, and what's Vegas supposed to be, Spanish?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think he's Hispanic.
Played by Native Americans, bizarrely. You've got the Japanese guy, E. Honda, played by a Samoan, bizarrely, but he's also supposedly Hawaiian or something. There's a lot of Hawaiian references, and there is, like, the Native American character, T-Hawk, is barely noticeable as a Native American. It was like we were most of the way through the film, and then suddenly we were like,
who is this guy?
He's literally been with them all throughout the film.
He's kind of there. It's like, who is he?
He doesn't say anything.
It's like, oh, yeah, he's T-Hawk. It's like, oh, okay, he was just always there. Like, third wheeling. So, yeah, as a film, it was a mess and quite ambitious. I think they were trying to set this up to be a series, and I don't think it worked. I don't think it was ever going to work, because I think they should have just kept the story smaller, more focused on individual characters, and if they wanted this to be a franchise, then maybe over time introduce the characters, because they ultimately had an ensemble film that just became a clusterfuck.
Yeah. It's kind of, in a way, I think you said, it's almost like a preview of the Avengers films' problems, in a way. At least the Avengers films have solo efforts before they then get the band together. But I've not seen Batman vs Superman, but it's been criticised for the same problem.
Yeah.
That it's basically just trying to cram too much in at one time, and therefore nothing actually lands because you don't spend enough time with any of the characters to actually give a shit about them.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of part of the problem. We were both, like, I mean, I was laughing and, like, watching the film, but, like, we begun talking about different things whilst the film's going on, because I think we never got that sense of drama, that sense of peril, that sense of reason to keep, you know, attached to the characters, because there was so much
with all films,
shit going on. Like.
I'm just dead inside, I think.
Okay, so let's talk about it now as an adaptation. How does it adapt? How does the film translate the game, and how faithful does it stay to its roots?
Yeah. Not very. Right, let's move on. No.
Yeah, so I mean, they do try. Like, there's a lot of nods to the game. There's a lot of stuff like over the course of the film, the characters gain the costumes that they have in the game. Like, Ken and Ryu end up in their white and red. Chun-Li has a wrist guards.
I like this idea. I did like that idea. it's a bit like if Iron Man had been about a guy who accidentally becomes magnetic and then suddenly he's got stuff sticking to him, like, you know, he's got like pans on his arm and a pot sticks on his head. You know, it's like the idea they accidentally end up in their costumes. There's something similar to that in another film, but I can't remember what it was.
Right. But I mean, they do also.
Barry Brothers actually know that.
Yeah, that's true. They do kind of over the course of the film. They start off in the plumber's uniform, and then they get the boots, and not that they especially wear boots in the game, but like the ability come with the boots and stuff. So, and they also in the film they recreate the stages, like iconic stages. Like there's a bit where you see Sagat's stage because it's got like the bronze woman laying down. They recreate Bison's stage because it has like the bell in the background. There's a bit with the kind of crashing waves, which I think is Honda's stage. So there's and at one point, fucking hell, at one point Bison is controlling missiles using an arcade gamepad. So like, there's a lot of like they do I mean, obviously, and as well. They crowbar, I think, almost every character from Super Street Fighter. I mean, other than the Bruce Lee character, I've forgotten his name. But other than maybe one or two characters, I think every character's in this film.
Please tell us what these things are in the comments, because I know you're probably dying to. Yes, I mean, this is the thing. The funny thing is Steven de Souza, who's the director of this, who, fun enough, was more known as a screenwriter, and he wrote the Die Hard films.
Right.
And he also wrote Hudson Hawk, which I recommend very highly. Go and watch Hudson Hawk. But he said that he didn't want to crowbar characters in, that he wanted it to all make sense on its own terms. But this is some of the most blatant crowbarring I've ever seen. And he said that he didn't want the magical powers because he felt that would be unrealistic. But this is not exactly very gritty. It's not Daniel Blake.
It's not realistic, but they get a guy to turn green, and they have a man flying around like. No, you kind of failed. You still have managed to put the magic powers in there.
I do wonder if maybe he was working at Counter Purposes with Capcom or something like that. He was saying, come on, we don't want realistic, we just want, ludicrous over the top nonsense, and that's fair enough.
I understand the necessity to rework elements of a game, because video games and movies are obviously very different mediums, and the thing is, Street Fighter didn't have a story. Like, each character had their own sort of motive to do the tournament. Not that a tournament ever comes up in the film.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, the climbing of the ranks to get to Bison kind of thing.
I mean, but obviously, Mortal Kombat does that, and
that's true.
We will see that. I mean, both Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat are based on Enter the Dragon.
Yes.
So, it would have been sort of fairly easy to do that. But so I admire their commitment at trying to do something different and making it. I think he's said it was like a Bond film, and it's kind of like a superhero thing.
Yeah.
But it kind of like, by trying to avoid one stupid over the top thing, they just created another entirely stupid over the top thing that doesn't really have that much to do with the game. I suppose the thing about the game is people's investment in the characters of the game comes down to the fact that they are the characters. Their investment on that level is because you're actually playing the match, and so if you win or you lose, it's based on your own skills.
Yeah.
So that's where the investment comes in. So they couldn't do that in the film, obviously. So they needed to find some way to actually make you connect with these characters. On more than just I'm sort of twiddling the joystick level. And they failed horribly.
Yeah.
I don't say you dislike the characters necessarily. I think that there is definitely fun to be had in this film, and it did remind me in a lot of places of Double Dragon.
Yes.
And that's the same kind of humour, But
that kind of self-aware irony kind of thing.
Double Dragon at least only had like two characters and then the bad guy, and you had like a couple of other extraneous characters, but they didn't try and cram everything in so much.
Yeah, and I think that was the problem. Like this had too much going on, and it was like an attempt to force every character into this film, and it's like that wasn't necessary. You could have had half the amount of characters and the film would have been fine. I mean, of course we can't go on without talking about the speech. There's the famous speech that Guile does about, now we can go home. Like, for no reason, Simon Callow turns up, for no reason, and just says, and arrogantly says, no, the war is over now. We're going to pay the ransom, so, yeah.
I do like the idea that you maybe, like, 10 seconds before, in the background, you can see Simon Callow actually being handed a large sack of money. Like, this is for your 2 minutes, there you go.
Yeah. So, like, it's a cameo appearance, but, like, so says, no, you have to stand down. You have, we're going to surrender. And it's like, no, you can't do that because he's just going to do it again. And so he has to say to his troops, saying, okay, everyone, we can go home. And everyone looks upset by that.
Yeah, because there's nothing like army people hate more than going home.
It's true. Like, surely they would have been like, oh, great. Now I don't have to die.
Thank goodness.
So no, they're all cut up by it. And so he gives this like.
Well, I guess you're going to have to go home to your families now. You're going to have to leave this area where you're going to get shot in the head.
You're going to have to go home and watch your son grow up. Like, no, they're going to want to do that. So they're all really cut up and upset. And so Guy was like, but no, I'm going to get on that boat and I'm going to drive there anyway. So therefore, making the war very illegal.
Yes, we're going to create an international incident now.
Yes, he has just created an illegal war.
Do you think the sequel is just like Guile in The Hague? Hey, what can I say, you guys?
So it's Guile on trial.
I mean, what would have made more sense at that point of the film would have been that, so Guy was told to stand down. He's told that he's not allowed to invade because they're going to pay the ransom. And so what should have happened is that Guile just goes on his own.
Yeah.
He just goes on his own. Cammy may come along with him. T-Hawk, sure, like he's just also there.
And what they could have done, because they had the army coming in at the end, but they could have just had the army turn up, and then they could have had Simon Calais standing there and being like, hey, Guile, I was wrong, you son of a gun.
The army don't do anything until after Guile and Chun-Li do everything in the first place anyway, so like, it would have been made more sense that they're like, oh no, okay, we're done for. Like we at least we tried, and then at the last second, the army is here.
I like that this is the deal breaker for us. You know, I can believe that you can put a man in a booth and he'll come out all green and lumpy. But damn it, if a film isn't accurate about international law, then it's lost me. I'm sorry.
So, Joel, how would you make a Street Fighter movie?
Oh Lord, this is it. I mean, because I was saying, I don't have a clue. I mean, there have been other Street Fighter films made, and I think one of the ones we're going to tackle a bit later on is one which is a solo film about Chun-Li, which is apparently even worse than this film somehow. Because I think it's difficult because, I mean, and they have made other Street Fighter films, and, you know, the thing about Street Fighter is there is a huge amount of backstory pre-existing that, you know, is not too difficult to adapt. It has a cinematic feel to it, and each of them have their own sort of different problems. So I suppose, you know, I would tap into that. I'd probably do something sort of quite similar. But maybe if we go... let me go into the land of ludicrosity.
Sure.
Let me go entirely in the other direction and think about something that's really strange. Alright, Street Fighter the musical. This is how you do it. What you do is you hire people like Hugh Jackman has experience both in like the area of being a badass and in musical theatre.
Yeah.
So I think that this is the time. I think you could combine the two. I think that that's how you get people to engage with it, not through like, you know, drama and but in like really kick-ass songs written by whoever it was who did Frozen or that guy who did Hamilton. I've not seen Hamilton, but yeah, this is it. Hugh Jackman can finally bring his two interests together. He could be Guile, or maybe he's a bit old. Maybe he could be like what's his name, M. Bison. You know,
maybe yeah.
Because he has he's been in Oklahoma, so he has experience with bison already. And then so we just find all those people who have that crossover. You know, Russell Crowe has been a badass, and he's also done a lot of music stuff. So you know, he could be in it. You know, shave his head. He'd be a great. Is it Sagat?
Sagat, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we do. We finally bring the two together. We can create it. We can make people who love action films love musicals and vice versa. I think this is the way it's going to go, because there is such a crossover between dance and martial arts as well.
True.
I can't believe I've come up. This is the unified field theory of filmmaking.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I would just make it a small story. So, like, I mean, yeah, we get to see the Street Fighter Chun-Li movie, but, like, yeah, focus it on one character, focus on their arc, focus on their journey. Make it, I guess, kind of like the tournament if you want, or maybe not necessarily a tournament per se, but a series of small fights.
Yeah.
That is partly in turn building up their own strength, but also in turn getting them closer to their goal.
You could have M. Bison just in the background, like a shadow.
Yeah,
figure.
like he's
a shadow Louis figure.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, like, there's the classic plot trope of dude with a problem, which is the or is it the superhero trope? I can't remember which one it is, but it's the one where it is they have a goal and a series of small challenges along the way, and it's kind of like building them up to accomplish that goal. That I think should be the film. So like you pick one character and you focus on them throughout, and like you have the other characters come in to pepper it up, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Not all of them, just some of them. And then
you can have little nods.
Yeah, you can have one of them be the other's like sidekick, but then in turn becomes like the next villain in the next film or something. You want to tease
out their own unique qualities that make people want to see, make people, that's interesting, I wouldn't mind seeing a film about this Blanca fellow.
Yeah, maybe. So, yeah, I think
Blanca's one of the most difficult ones to do, isn't he? Because of his green hairy fellow. But,
yeah. And also, street fighting in the streets, like a bar brawl, for example, or like they gang up on him in an alleyway or something like that. Like it could be someone infiltrating the seedy underbelly of like this kind of organised crime unit, which is Bison's,
Sure.
So
maybe this is what the later films are like, but we won't know because we're probably not going to see them until the year 2024. So.
That's true at this rate. So we get to our reviews, where our scores, should I say? We did the review bit, which is where we score it out of 5 things. So Joel, I guess I'm going to throw you in the deep end and make you score first. I'm trying to think
of like things that were in the film, but if I go for skulls, then you can't do skulls.
I have my own one ready.
You have your own thing. Okay, cool. Well, in that case, then I'd probably give it about 5 out of 10 skulls.
Oh, we're doing it out of 5.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, in that case, 2.5 out of 5 skulls. Not awful. Not as bad as Super Mario Brothers, which just had no connection. This film at least made a fair stab at actually being about the characters and things like that. And although just really ludicrous casting and thing, but I don't know. I was kind of entertained, and it's almost worth it for Raúl Juliá's performance alone, which is almost like a parody of a mad scientist character. Because the character DJ is actually quite good, and he's literally just rolling his eyes.
And Zangief as well. Like I think has brings a lot of levity to it.
No real connection to the Zangief in the games. He's basically just like a dolt. He's like Bane in Batman and Robin, But I think he's kind of rendered quite well by that actor.
Yeah.
So 2.5 skulls.
Cool.
The skulls of my enemies. Sorry.
I think that's pretty fair. I was wondering whether or not we were going to do half scores, but I honestly think 2.5.
All right, 2 out of 5 then. Sorry.
No, I'm going to go with a half. So
okay, fine.
I'm going to give it 2.5 bison dollars.
Oh, which means that your score is worthless until you kidnap the queen.
Until I kidnap the queen. So I agree. It's not a terrible film. I mean, I laughed a lot throughout, but that really I think is because I wasn't meant to laugh at it. I think a lot of it was taking itself. I mean, the film doesn't take itself too seriously, but the bits that are serious are just stupid.
Yeah.
So you laugh at the wrong bits, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but there are a couple of genuine laugh out loud moments that are meant to be funny. Like Zangief, for example, like his lines were all tended to be the funniest. 2.5. It's not terrible. There's a lot they could have done that could have been better. But for what this is, it's a 2.5.
Oh sure, and I think ironically, even though we said it has big problems, out of the 3 films that we've seen so far as part of this, it is actually the most accurate to the game. So
true. Well, saying that, there are, I would say, 2 things that are synonymous with the games that are absolutely not in this film.
What's that?
And that's the Shoryuken and the Hadouken.
That's true.
At no point do they do either of those. They kind of punch. They kind of uppercut, and there was a point where he does the Hadouken hand gesture, and the screen flashes white, and the characters just fall backwards, but there's no fireball.
Yeah.
Those are very iconic to the game, and those are absolutely not in the film, which is kind of weird when you think about it.
Big mistake.
But I guess if they were
at the very least, they could have had them with a can of hairspray in a match or something.
Yeah. But I guess if they were trying to take out the magical elements of the game, then
they took the magic out, all right.
Then they had to take that out too, which seems weird and backward, but hey ho, that's it. So that's the end of this review. Hope you enjoyed it, and tune in to the next one, which will be what, Mortal Kombat?
Yes, it will. Which I have seen. So
yes, so have
get
I.
ready for some amazing insights. It's ironic because in Mortal Kombat you've got Johnny Cage, who is basically Jean-Claude Van Damme.
That's true.
They didn't get him for that. So
he was too busy with this.
We need a sign off. I think we need like a sign off catchphrase.
Go home and be a family man.
Oh. Is that a quote from something?
Yes, that's like Guile's end quote.
I ruined it by talking over it and asking you questions about it there, though. Bye!
Bye!